Welcome, fellow Americans. I'm Bill Lipinski.
And I'm Ray Hanania, and this is episode 9, season 2 of Two Guys on Politics. And with interesting stuff in Congress, Speaker of the House gets removed by some rebel members of their own party. What'd you make of that? Congressman Matt Gaetz took out Congressman the Speaker McCarthy. What was that about?
I can tell you, I got an email today from Matt Gaetz saying that they're attacking me. They're coming after me.
Oh, yeah.
Please help out. So
I got that email too. I don't know how we got our emails.
I don't know either. So
that's the first time I've ever heard from him, by the way.
It's the first time I've ever heard from him. But I sent back saying, I definitely want to help you out of Congress as quickly as possible.
Yeah, the funny thing about it, he probably buys a list of all the political people and decides that, hey, this is his moment in the sun, 15 minutes of fame. And with that big pompadour that he has, which I thought pompadours went out with the dinosaurs. I didn't realize people still had them. But what was most interesting to me about this, he complained about Speaker McCarthy working with the Democrats, right? He said they worked with the Democrat to prevent the government from shutting down, which I think, by the way, is a good thing, right? That's where we should be going.
I definitely do.
And what did Gaetz do? He worked with the Democrats to take McCarthy out. How does that not become an issue for anybody? That's just beyond me. What a hypocrite.
Well, I think that he was motivated by the fact that he's being investigated by the Ethics Committee in the House of Representatives for being involved somehow with underage girls. And supposedly, I've got this from a couple of present members, he went to McCarthy to squash it. And McCarthy
didn't do it.
Right, exactly. So that's why he's, hell-bent on destroying McCarthy. And as far as I'm concerned, if they don't get the right speaker there to replace McCarthy, it's going to destroy the Republican Party in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, I mean, when it really comes down to it, you're absolutely right. This guy Gaetz is a nobody who the only thing you know about him is that he has all these controversies. I guess his father was into politics years ago. He's being investigated for these reports about harassment and he's a far right winger, isn't he? He's just too far. He's like the extreme. He's the polar opposite of the Ilhan Omar and Ocasio, AOC. He's like, they're on the far left, he's on the far right. And then those individuals on the far left and the far right, they can hold the entire political system hostage just by a few votes. That's terrible.
Oh, it is absolutely ridiculous. Let me tell you one other thing. When John Boehner was the speaker, he wound up resigning the day before someone was going to move against him to vacate the speakership. And he told people that he probably could stay if he wanted to, because Nancy Pelosi, who was a strong institutionalist, offered to deliver to him enough Democratic votes to offset whatever Republican votes he might lose. But John decided he couldn't stay underneath those circumstances. So he wound up resigning really before they could take a vote on it. And now I've heard, and I don't know if I can believe this one or not, because I've heard it only from one person, that McCarthy was told by Pelosi that, if he would help pass the continuing resolution, that if anybody moved against him, she would try to deliver votes to him to save his speakership. Unfortunately, she was in San Francisco at the funeral of Dianne Feinstein. She was not in a position to do so. Now, whether or not McCarthy would have accepted that, I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's nothing wrong with Republicans and Democrats working together. We're we're basically Democrats who are conservative. Reagan Democrats,
Right.
Reagan's a Republican. It should be about, I guess that's one of the problems in this country. It should be about issues and not about political party. It's almost maybe I don't want to use a comparison, but it's horrible to make it about your party and to push the party. Now he's also a Trump person, and
Oh,
I know
God.
he Gaetz tried hard to block McCarthy, and I think you're right. It's because McCarthy wouldn't intervene to block the investigations of his sexual misconduct, and I think there was something involving misuse of funds too.
You
So
may have,
he has some issues. Now, what's come of that? I really don't know, but it really is going to turn the Congress into some real turmoil because there's some uncertainty now. But do you have to be a member of Congress to actually be the Speaker of the House?
no, you do not.
Yeah, I was hearing rumors that
But
they were going.
fortunately, you cannot be under indictment. If
Well,
you're under indictment, you can't be the speaker.
oh, so you can't make Trump the Speaker
No.
of the House. That would be funny. Oh, so you can't even be under indictment. Of course, indictment isn't a conviction. Indictment is just an accusation. Everybody's supposedly innocent until proven guilty, unless you happen to be Trump.
I mean, our freedom fighter friend, Bob Menendez, he had to step down as the chairman of the Foreign Relations because of the fact that he's been indicted. Now he doesn't have to leave Congress until he's convicted.
Yeah, if he's convicted, but in that case, stepping down, I guess, is more or less because you got to focus on your issue. You can't focus on your responsibilities as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. But there were these rumors going around that people were trying to start. Why don't they nominate Lynn Cheney to be the Speaker of the House? And I was ready to shoot myself, going, "Oh, she's the daughter of a war criminal, Dick Cheney, and the biggest hypocrite I've ever seen. I don't like her. I can't stand her because I think
on numerous occasions."
Well, I mean, listen, she was, I didn't hear her complain about anything until she got into a fight with Trump. But she was a Trump loyalist. She stood by him all the way through on everything. She never question anything. And then one time she has a problem with him and he disagrees with her, she goes off the deep end, which tells me she's a bigger hypocrite. So for me, it would be terrible for her to rise up.
I've never heard anything about Lynn Cheney. I can't believe that the Republicans would want her as the speaker. No way.
Yeah, I don't think they would either, but the Democrats would, and they got enough votes. Obviously, they took McCarthy out. The interesting thing is this guy Gaetz, out of nowhere, can just, with only a few votes, can destroy the party. Is that because the political parties are so almost equally divided? They're so
that's one
close.
thing. But the fact that prior to this Congress, you needed at least 5 people to vote to vacate the chair. But as McCarthy negotiated his way into the speakership, he agreed to make it only one person could move to vacate the chair, which didn't turn out too well for him, unfortunately. But he made so many compromises. He was very much hindered right off the start.
How does it help the Democrats, do you think, to support Gaetz to take McCarthy out? I mean, why would they vote alongside of a Trump fanatic to take out a moderate Republican who worked with them to keep the government open?
Just to create more chaos and confusion, make the Republicans look bad. That's all. As you mentioned earlier, it's party against party. The Republicans hate the Democrats. The Democrats hate the Republicans. And all they do is try to put forward programs, legislation that hurts the other party. It is not about what's good for America by any stretch of the imagination. It's what's good for.
Doesn't it make the Democrats look bad, though? I mean, they're they could be worse when you really put everything on the balance. They've done more for Trump than Gaetz did for Trump. Gaetz couldn't deliver McCarthy. The Democrats had to do it. They literally delivered McCarthy's downfall to President Trump through this goof, Matt Gaetz, who the other thing I know about him is he represents the panhandle of Florida, which, I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's a nice area. They got some nice beaches. I can't imagine people must be on vacation there all the time, not thinking about who's going to represent them in Congress.
Well, the Democrats did it for one reason and one reason only, as I say, to embarrass the Republicans as much as possible. And now they'll be hoping that they'll get some extreme right winger as Speaker who will not be able to accomplish anything because, in fact, many of the moderate Republicans will not support him. So far, I understand there's 2 candidates for Speaker. Are you aware of that?
No. And
there's 2 candidates. One candidate is the man who doesn't own a sport coat or a suit coat, Jim Jordan.
Oh, okay. I've vaguely heard of him.
Yeah, head of the Judiciary Committee. Now he is, he's almost, well, I won't say it. I was going to say something. He's very right wing. There's
Right.
no question about that. Unfortunately, he's a very personable individual. I've heard Democrats say that off the floor, like Newt Gingrich, he's really easy to get along with. He's a nice guy. He'll help you out if he can help you out in some way, shape, or form. When he's on the floor talking about the Democrats, he's one of the greatest bomb throwers in the history of the Republic. So, he might have a shot. Now, the guy that's running against him is the number 2 guy in the Republican Party, Jim Scalise. But the problem there is Scalise has been treated for cancer for the last 6 months. There was a picture the other day of him on TV, and he has to walk at the present time with one of those crutches, one crutch. So a lot of people might think that he's not up to the job and vote for Jordan. I mean, someone said to me, if Jordan gets to be the Speaker, that's another nail in the coffin of the American Republic.
Wow. And now I actually don't, is there a possibility that Democrats they have the votes. They could pick somebody if they could get a few Republicans, right? How many do they need? They only need about 5, right?
Actually, I think they only need 4. But
4?
Anyway, they need 4 or 5 Republicans, yeah.
So they could go to a Republican they like, and then they'd only have to get 3 other people to support them, and the Democrats could pick somebody.
Exactly.
What happens to the House when you don't have a Speaker?
You can't do any business.
Can they have meetings? They can't have meetings?
They can have meetings, all right, but they can't vote on anything on the floor. You can't bring any legislation to the floor. You can't introduce any legislation. When you introduce legislation, you have to give it to the clerk of the House, and he gives it a number, and then he gives it to the Speaker, and the Speaker assigns it to a particular committee.
It's not like in the case of, let's say, the president leaves office and the vice president takes over. There's no vice president or vice speaker who just takes over when the speaker's gone.
McCarthy made up a list of people at the beginning of Congress. If anything happened to him, here's the people he'd like to see be as Speaker. Well, they took the guys from North Carolina that is the Speaker, but he can do almost nothing. He did. What's her name out of her house? Nancy, not her house, but her office in the Capitol. He kicked Nancy out of that, and so that McCarthy would have an office in the Capitol. It's just, wow. I cannot believe the childish that's going on in the supposedly the greatest deliberative body in the world.
And all this while we have so much serious threats to this country, and they can't seem to figure out what the priority is to focus on. You're absolutely right. It's almost like childish. You got to blame the Democrats just as much because they made this happen, but you can't not blame the Republicans, which when you look at it, I think the Republican Party is in total disarray. They're just the presidential candidates are meaningless. Trump dominates everything, and he's on trial. He's been indicted, 91 indictments, I think, is what he faces. And again, I'm not saying that all those indictments are not purely driven by politics. I think some of these attorneys, these U.S. attorneys that have gone after him, these states attorneys, like the one down in the U.S. attorney down in Georgia, it's purely political. I still don't believe there's any real substance to their accusations. They sound bad, but the point is that, wow, could you have ever imagined that this country would be in the situation it is right now, where Russia is rising, the Chinese are rising, and all we are worried about is what some goof from the panhandle in Florida with the pompadour thinks about the country, and with one vote and tear it all apart. Amazing.
You talk about the case in Georgia, that case in New York about Trump in,
the civil suit.
At a civil suit where he supposedly
inflated.
From what I understand, talking to people who are in the real estate business, everybody in the real estate business does exactly that.
They inflate it all the time.
Absolutely. It's up to the bankers who's going to lend them the money to see if it's credible or not.
The worst.
And on top of that, if they find them guilty and they're going to fine them money, who does the money go to? He didn't lose it. He didn't lose any money. I mean, who lost out on this?
It's just purely, this is all politics. He's an easy target, and mainly because the media makes him an easy target. And I'm not saying maybe he's not guilty.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to say that, and I'm not really a big fan of Trump's either. I'm just a fan of doing things the right way, whether you're a good person or a bad person. I mean, when you go to our the rule of law, and when you apply it to our judicial system, it's not about whether you're guilty or not guilty. It's about ensuring things are done fairly and the right way. That's what makes our country so great. We're not in the Soviet Union where a gulag judge can say, hey, he doesn't like you, and the facts don't mean anything, and then they throw you in prison, but they let somebody else out because he's the nephew, of a tyrant like Putin. It's just, it's terrible, and we're just so degraded at this point. And it looks like things are going to get worse. I mean, I just don't. What's next? I mean, I want to go back to that question. You explained it pretty well. They can't do anything, and I'm thinking they can't do anything. How is that possible? That Congress can't do anything?
The congressional rules say you have to have a speaker to do anything. That's why the first thing they do at every Congress is elect a new speaker.
Wow. Can the Senate step in and do something to change this? No. What about the president? Can the president do anything? He can't appoint anybody.
Oh, he can't appoint anybody. He can't, and he can't step into it. No.
And that's assuming
representatives.
And that's assuming the president is aware of all this. I'm not quite convinced that he's aware of everything going on over there. If it's not on his teleprompter, he may not know.
This guy, Jim Jordan, now, I don't know how you feel about Ukraine one way or another, but one of the biggest planks in his platform running for speaker is for us not to give it any more money to Ukrainians.
All right, why don't we invite Putin to be the Speaker of the House and end it? Why are we playing a game? Let's just tell Vladimir Putin, the new Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, that we might as well just
if it wasn't so tragic, it really might be funny, but it's not.
Yeah, no, it is.
Because it's so ridiculous.
Yes, I'm making jokes about it because it is very painful, and this is the most painful event in politics because it hurts us so badly. Absolutely. To acknowledge it is almost like acknowledging surrender and defeat as a democracy. That's what it really comes down to. And I'm just shocked that the media they don't care. It fits into their agenda. You know, it's
But
they want to see this.
And of course, being closely allied with the Democrats, I haven't seen any news media that's blamed the Democrats for uniting with these 8
I'm the only
Republicans.
one. I'm the only one. I'm writing my column this week on, wait a minute, Gaetz complained about McCarthy working with the Democrats, and the only way he destroyed McCarthy was to work with the Democrats. It's the most hypocritical thing I've seen, and you'd think that somebody in the media would point that out, but they're so gleeful. They are so happy. They're not going to spoil it.
And listen, if you happen to disappear, Ray, what would you like me to do? Do you have any faith in the FBI or the Department of Justice?
The FBI already investigated me. I served it during the Vietnam War, active duty, honorably discharged, did my duty. And as soon as I was discharged, the FBI investigated me for 2 years because I was an Arab. The worst waste of money that they could ever do. But this is just,
do you know? Why were they investigating?
I wrote a letter to Newsweek magazine critical of Anwar Sadat's peace accord effort with Israel. And I think I was the only Arab that could get published. Literally, the Arab American community, we were isolated from the media. I actually got published in Newsweek, a letter to the editor, a short, I think it's 300 words, and it was very focused, not rambling. And then I got published in Time magazine a week later. Then I got interviewed by the magazines about, oh, you're Palestinian, what do you think, And I think that concerned them. So the FBI report, which I got a copy of, starts out by saying, we suspect Ray Hanania could be a terrorist, even though I've had a security clearance. That's how the report starts. And you know who helped me? Ed Derwinski, Congressman Derwinski. I went to him and I said, hey, there's a rumor going around. I talked to somebody, this is years later, 5 years later, that there's an FBI report on me, and he helped me get it. And he said, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen, he told me, because at the conclusion of this 40-page report that must have cost $2 million to investigate all the people they talked to and everything, it says, turns out Ray Hanania only is a committed American dedicated to helping his community become more involved in the American system. Oh, and by the way, do not interview him, because if we interview him, he's a journalist and he might write a story about us investigating the Arab community. That's when I realized being a journalist was the most important thing I could do.
Who was the head of the FBI and who was the president at the time?
Oh, geez, we're talking 1975. I got out of the service. So it's 75, 76. They investigated me.
It was either Nixon or Ford.
Yeah, I have the reports. I'd have to look at it. The FBI, I wrote letters to the FBI director, and I didn't get it until 1978. When I was just starting in journalism too, when I was upset with Alex Seith writing columns every week attacking the Arabs. If Alex Seith wouldn't have written those columns attacking the Palestinians, I'd probably be a doctor today, and I wouldn't care about politics.
Well, we need you to be involved in politics, because like my friend Bob Menendez, you're a freedom fighter.
Well, that's true. One man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. But I think the most important thing that came out of here at this Two Guys on Politics episode is we both agree that the media is deficient by not pointing out that the Democrats were responsible for bringing down the Congress and the Speaker of the House. They really should wear the collar, but they want to put it around the neck of a clown in a pompadour, because that is a better story than the truth. And that's the sad part about American media.
That's very true. Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, I just hope that we can overcome this hurdle. We've overcome many hurdles in the history of our republic, but this is one of the toughest ones, I think.
And I can't let this go because it's like you're at a precipice and you're looking at an abyss that has you can't see the floor. I can't see the floor of this thing. Congress can't do anything. It's like being in a car that's broken now. We're sitting on the highway and we are just helpless, right? We're hopeless. There's
Right,
nothing
and
we can do.
we have to, pass another continuing resolution in order for the government not to shut down in about 38 days, I think, at the present time. Now they're coming back in next Tuesday with the hopes of electing a speaker. But the last time it took 15 votes to elect McCarthy. So Lord only knows how much it's going to take this time.
Wow. All right. Well, let's hope that the pressure of having a speaker forces them to do something that obviously they may not want. Gaetz, I guess, voted 15 times against McCarthy and finally relented. I can't remember what the reason was why he did it and agreed to support him, but they could be 15, it could be 50, it could be even more or never. They may not. If they don't, they get. It's like Congress is done. What do we need a Congress for? If there's no speaker, it's over with, right? We just shut down. January 6th. They didn't need January 6th. They didn't have to attack the Congress bill on January 6th. All they had to do was have this guy Gaetz come in and undermine the speaker. Who knew that was the easy way to take down Congress? Wow.
I think, to be fair, he ought to leave the Republicans and join the Democrats now. See how much damage he can do over there.
Yeah, let them take him. All right. All right, Bill. I think they talked this. It's making me more depressed. I'm trying to use humor to keep myself from being depressed about this because this is a bad situation. I'm Ray Hanania.
I'm Bill Lipinski, a fellow American.
And this is Two Guys on Politics. And hopefully we will have a country when we have our next episode next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.